Today is Friday. Welcome to the IQ room. Today is roundtable meetup. We've got some pending trades, by the way, for those that are interested in still trading. We had another signal in the notes way up here. All right, we have a special guest. We don't have a special guest. Dennis is always here in the IQ room, but we have a special sharing or a meetup session with Dennis. Dennis, can you hear me? Let me know when you're ready and I will unmute you. I've got some of the charts you've sent me. Dennis, let me know when you're ready and I'll unmute you. Dennis has had some really great trades, swing trades. So he's going to be sharing his swing trading. And one of the things he sent me, if I can find it, take a look at these numbers. They're impressive. Dennis, you gave me permission to show this, right? The charts you sent me and the coffee trade. Dennis, type in if you can hear me, if you're in, and then I'll do a mic check. But Dennis sent me a printout, and the profits were incredible. This is on coffee. Short trades, 53,000 profit. Long trades, 13,000. Net trades, no, I might have read this wrong. Anyway, net profitable trades, 247,000, and that's after commissions. $247,000. That's like way up there. Profit factor 10.61, and I think he was trading 10 contracts maybe, and he would scale in and maybe scale out. Pyramid in, scale out. See what else is in here. And that was from May 31st to July 20th. So basically you're talking about 2 months, not even that. And out of those, he had, I believe, he had about 100 and something trades. Let me check. He had 105 trades. Which is approximately, hold on. It's about 2 trades a day, but those weren't day trades. Those were swing trades. So I would imagine that was from pyramiding and scaling out Can y'all hear me okay? All right, let me see what other info I got here. The screen keeps closing on me. So these are some very interesting stats. Dennis, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Now I hear you, Dennis.
I'm here.
Let me turn up my volume so I can hear you better. All right. How are you doing today? Good?
Yeah, I'm fine.
All right. Everybody else here, Dennis? Don't think I can turn the volume up from my end too much. All right, Dennis, I want to thank you for sharing your trading with us. Have a few questions. You sent me a pic of the architect, and you also said that the two things that you or that helped you in your swing trades was the architect and the 240-minute chart. Is that right?
That's correct.
All right, let me try to bring up the architect. Let's start with that, if that's okay with you.
Sure.
Here we go. Whoops. All right, let me see if I can maneuver this. All right, so you customized this somewhat. You, let's see, you've got an extreme 1 hour, 4 hour, 8 hours, 24 hours, 48, 72, 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. That's pretty good.
Yep. Ken has been great. I've been experimenting. I started out with going down to 5 minutes, but I found out that the RQ wasn't really giving me the signals. They're somewhat delayed compared to some of the other indicators. And so I found for me with my swing trading style that this analyzer works out for me great. Once I verify on the 240-minute chart that it looks good, the trend in one direction or the other, and then if I get a sea of green or a sea of red across the RQ Tech Analyzer, then I will enter the trade. And I swing trades generally. When I think of swing trading, I think of 3 days to 30 days, but sometimes I'm out of these in a day, sometimes less, and sometimes I'm in them longer, like about 45 days. I believe the coffee chart I sent to you on the 240, I was in that one for about 45 days.
That was the coffee. For how many days?
I believe it was about actually 40. I entered the trade on May 31, and when I did the used the instrument to see what my P&L was during that period, I did that on, I believe, July 20th, but I actually was out of the trade on May or June, I think around the 18th, something like that.
Okay. Um,
Or July 18, I'm sorry.
July 18th.
Yes. I was in on May 31.
Okay, let me ask you a couple questions. How did you enter the trade, with one contract, or did you pyramid? Did you scale out? What was
Yeah,
your?
I pyramided. I started out with 2 contracts. Um, I pyramided occasionally a couple of times in that period up to 10 contracts, but for the majority of the time I was using 5 contracts.
So your average was 5 contracts.
Yes, that's showed also in the P&L statement that I printed off for you on the Ninja.
Okay. Interesting. Now let me ask you a question. At any time when you were in the trade, were you negative?
Yes, there were a couple of times I believe that I reversed direction, but it was just for a short period of time, um, where it might have been a day or so, and then I was back long again, and then I was pyramiding back again when it would meet certain criteria.
Interesting.
I use the RQ channels as targets for when I pyramid.
To add. When
Yes,
you say targets, is to add positions.
yes.
Good. On the 240-minute chart, or 30 and 60, or?
I'm usually on the 60 and 60 minute, and so I'm looking at the RQ2 and 7 settings, and
Wait, hold
I
on.
will
Say
look
that
for
again. I'm sorry, say that again.
I'm on the 60-minute chart when I trade, and that's for most of the instruments, especially the non-risk instruments. I use 30-minute charts for the equity indices,
Okay.
and I use 30-minute for the currencies. So I use just 30-minute and 60-minute charts.
Okay, the 60 minutes is for, how about gold and crude oil?
I usually 60-minute.
So it's safe to say 60 minutes for commodities.
Yes.
Very good. And you're using, what are you using as your entry?
Again, I just
The
I
RC? Oh, the sea of red.
well
Yeah, yeah.
actually is what I do is I have 6 monitors up, and I'll have several. Um, I usually try to keep it to 4 or 5 um, instruments on each screen, and on one I keep the 240 minute chart, and I will pull that up, and quickly, if I want to, something looks interesting, I will then try to do what you do. I'm not as good as it. It takes me quite a while to figure out the trend lines and so forth. But if it looks good, or if you've done a chart yourself and I see it, and then if my RQ Tech is matching up, then that's going to be my entry point.
Interesting. So you're not necessarily using the Gnostic numbers or the RQ channel breaks?
Um, Not necessarily. If it looks good at that point, unless there's something else. If the RQ channels are long ways away, or if then I might wait. But as far as the Gnostic levels, sometimes I will enter when we're way out of the R1 um, or the R2 or the S2. If the market's moving and the RQ channels are down past the S2 or above the R2,
You'll take it.
I will still enter the trade.
Like, was it yesterday or the day before with gold, where it just skyrocketed past the
Yeah.
final?
Last night, I went to shut down my system for the evening, and all of a sudden, I mean, these charts just went crazy, and I couldn't figure out what was going on. And to come to find out, it was the announcement in Japan that kind of got the markets in Asia and London all roiled up for the evening. This morning when I got up, I was actually stopped out of several trades, including a coffee trade I had going, and a couple of other trades. I've re-entered and set my stops a little bit further away so I don't get stopped out. There's been such volatility since last night, even this morning. I think since that announcement come out this morning about the growth of the economy, I think that had a lot to do with these wild swings we're seeing. So I've put my stops a little bit further out so I don't get knocked out of these trades, because the trend is still the same.
Yep, yep. Okay, so when do you finally say enough's enough and close some of these swing trades? Is it on pullbacks? Is it profit targets?
Um, I I don't really set a profit target per se. I let them run, and I use trailing stops. And when I see on the 240-minute chart it's starting to go sideways, that's when I usually get out.
Interesting.
I usually get a signal on the RQ Tech. I'll see it's no longer a sea of red or green, and then I'll check the 240 to see what's going on. And I'll also look at the weekly chart to see if I'm seeing the same thing there. And if I do, then I definitely get out.
So you're looking at the weekly chart for some kind of confirmation of everything else.
Yes, I usually look at both the 240 and the weekly chart before I enter trades. The main one I like is the 240, but I like to get confirmation with the weekly that I'm not seeing something totally different. But if the weekly and the 240 are similar, then that's pretty much all the charting I do. Then if the RQ Tech matches up, I get in. For me, is what I've found out in the last couple of months since I've been doing this. It's reduced a lot of the noise, the volatility. It's kept me from overtrading, and I'm more profitable. That's for me. I think we all have different personalities, and I've kind of found that I'm sleeping a little bit better at night now
Can
with
you
these
repeat that,
kinds.
Dennis? That I think that's key. What you've just said. Can you repeat that again?
Okay, I found for me, at least with my personality, um, I found that the longer term charts, like the 60-minute in these trades, has reduced the noise and the choppiness. When I was previously on 5-minute charts, I was buying and selling several times a day. Now I'm not doing that any longer. I just stay in a trade, and so I'm not doing so much trading anymore. I'm just keeping an eye on the charts that I have, and I'm also looking for other trades so that when I get out of something, I kind of have an idea of what I've been looking at. I don't really like to have more than 5 trades going on at any one time. I like to have about 3 to 5, and I watch and monitor those closely. And then when I get out, if I find another instrument that I want to trade, and it meets the criteria I talked about, I will go ahead and get in. But for me, and I know you talked to me about this many times, Mr. Rios, that I was probably over trading, and I knew I was, and I think that on the shows when you do your performance, it shows, I can't think of the what it's called, but it kind of shows you your, like if you have a 1.02, I mean, you're having about as much losers as you are winners.
Right, profit factor. You mean.
And so um, I found for me with this, what I'm doing now, my profit factor is significantly increased. And
Yeah, that
so,
what you sent us had like I think a ten profit factor.
yeah, it's, I used to be about 2 or 3 when I was doing, trying to keep up with all these trades and everything moving and everything you were calling out in the room. Um, I'm in and out of trades sometimes within minutes, and so I was just barely, 1 or 2, um, or lose, but overall I was making money. But I found for me, once I went to these longer, it's really made a difference. I just I looked at some trades that I'm in right now before, about 10 minutes before we started, and I was up 3,200 in coffee. I actually got knocked out of that trade last night on a stop in the middle of the night while I was sleeping. When I got up this morning, um, there was nothing, and so I backed up and saw that there was some wild gyrations about, I think, 2 in the morning, and I was taken out of the trade. But it still looked good, so I re-entered the trade, and it wasn't too long after I was in the trade, I pyramided, and I was up 32, but I think it's gone down since. But I'm not worried because, you know, I'm just I'm looking at the overall trend. I was also up about 8,500 in natural gas. I was up 12,000 in platinum, 27,000 in palladium, and 5,000 in silver. Those are the 5 trades that I have going on right now. And I
Did
also
you say 8 in copper?
no, I'm not in I'm I'm not in copper
What
right
did you
now,
What
but
did you say that you had 8,000? You were up 8,000 in which one?
um, in natural
Natural
gas.
gas. That's right. And that's
Yeah.
after yesterday, right?
Yes, I just well, I've been in it for about a week,
Oh, okay.
um, but um, it it's actually gone into the negative at times, but I've kept my stop far enough away, and I felt comfortable enough from what I was seeing with the trend on the chart and with the RQ Tech. I just remain in it. Otherwise, if you know, every time if you know, you get a big red candle going down, if you're bullish, um, and you let it scare you out, um, you're gonna you're kind of defeating the purpose of the style of trading.
And what size stops do you use when you first enter a trade?
I keep them pretty short initially. I usually go to the previous candle to the bottom of it
The
and put
previous
the
candle?
stop there.
Yeah, a couple ticks below the previous candles, right?
Yeah, because I'm on a 60 minute, so I'll go to the you know, I guess it would be 2 hours previous that candle, and I will put my stop directly under that the candle, the previous candle.
Right, so it's really one previous candle to the current candle you have.
Yes,
Okay. Yeah, that's very good. That's very, very good. That's straightforward, simple technical analysis technique, charting technique, which
I
is which is good.
once the I get I see that there's like a lot of volatility, and we're getting these huge long candles like we've had last night and this morning. Then uh, I will move my stop down to one of the RQ lines, maybe a little bit below that. Um, so that I kind of try to see where the previous really long candles have gone to, and try to place my stop just below where that candle was on the next RQ line.
Okay. And here's a key question for everybody to take note of. You're getting in. Well, some of your stops could be fairly large if you're going with a previous candle low,
Oh yeah,
and
you have to have a lot of money in your account. This isn't for, you know, a $500 account. You've
right.
got to have several $100,000 in your account if you want to do this kind of trading.
Right, but here's the key though. You're not if your goal is to have 10 contracts, you're not entering with 10 contracts. You're entering with just a couple contracts, right?
Yeah, usually I enter most with 2, occasionally 5, but that's rare. I try to start out with 2, and once I reach a target above, usually I'm looking for an RQ channel. I will set another um, like another 2 contracts at that point, and I just keep doing that using primarily the RQ channels on the 2 and the 7.
Okay. Let me just pause here for one moment. I'm long the S&P and it's running. So that's good. So here's gold is also at the high of the day. So you've got gold and S&P at the high of the day and bonds at the close to high of the day. Did I get
That
filled in?
probably means my stuff is doing good then too, because platinum and silver usually follow gold. So
Oh yeah. Let me see if I got into, no, I'm not in the YM. I'm just in the, I'm in the notes and I'm in the S&P futures. Okay, so your risk is really not that much. It is in the sense that you're using wide stops, which you have to do if you're going to swing trade. That's the first thing
yes,
that that you got to come to terms with. But if you've got enough to trade 10 contracts, you're only starting out with 2 contracts. And that's,
usually.
yeah,
Sometimes I will do,
five.
I will go to, I will add 3 on the next, my next pyramiding target, and that will give me 5. And then my next target might be 5 contracts, and when it hits that, then I have 10. I don't like to go any higher than 10, but if I really see it's looking good and running, there are times I've gone to 20. But
Wow.
that's very, very seldom. I don't like to get in that many because you can get burned.
Well, not only that,
Um,
but you're also trading some other markets. So you're getting a lot of exposure out there.
yeah. Generally, I like to stay at 5. That's what I feel comfortable with for most instruments. Just depends on what it is and how much they cost. Like silver is extremely expensive, so I don't want to get any higher than 5 contracts at all with that.
Yeah, silver, 25 bucks a tick. Bonds too. Um, okay, so it's actually music to my ears, I guess. You know, it's a good way of putting it, that you're actually pyramiding. So here's something to give our members something to think about. When you enter a trade and you're trading, let's say, 5 contracts is what you normally trade, or 3 contracts. You trade 3 contracts. If you're going to swing trade, and we've talked about this before, you need wider stops, or if not, you're going to be getting stopped out, and you're going to get very
Hmm.
frustrated because it's going to go right back in your direction, and your head will start spinning after you go through 3 or 4 of those situations. So you have to widen your stops, and what Dennis is doing using technically, or a technical um, on 60 minutes and 30 minutes by that lower low. What you can also do is set up your RQ, and I'll do some tests on it. You can set up your RQ channel on the setting of the 1 meter for, and you can set your RQ, you're at CCAL with entry. If you're getting in at 4, you can try 4 if you're adding on, and you can set at your exit or your stop loss at 1 setting, and that'll give you an idea of your risk versus reward when you're pyramiding. That's some food for thought for some of you, and for you too, Dennis.
Yeah, I'm gonna definitely try that and see what
Yeah. It
happens.
it might, it might be helpful. I'm going to run some tests over the weekend, but what's music to my ears is that he's pyramiding in. If you're day trading like we do in the room, mostly 90% of our trades, um, it's easy for these stop losses to be small because, $200 is like a sweet spot where usually if it breaks, it usually comes back, won't take you out, then they run again if they do have that pullback. And a lot of times you do have those days where you have momentum and it just goes and goes. In swing trading, you don't have that. In swing trading, you're going to have your pullbacks. So by reducing the amount of contracts you start out with, you are cushioning your overall, not cushioning, you're mitigating, you're limiting your overall stop loss or risk amount on a per trade basis. Then you're going to add. Now my question to you, Dennis, is that when you add, where I know you're adding at the next RQ channel or at, yeah, whichever RQ channel you
Not necessarily the next RQ, but
could be two or
I
three
will
down.
kind of look at the big picture, and um, I might go to, the highest RQ channel and put it up there, and because I know those channels are going to change the next day.
Right.
And if it's trending, let's say we're in a bullish trend, I know those RQ channels are probably going to be much higher the next day. If we're in a bearish, it's going to be just the reverse. So that's what I'm kind of looking for. It's not necessarily the next RQ channel, but I might look out like 5 points or something, and look for the nearest RQ channel, either the 7, usually the 7, and set it there.
Okay. Now, what are your rules when you add? What do you have to be up a certain amount of, where do you set your stop when you add?
Well, I just keep moving my
Let me
my
ask another
stop
way.
up.
Let me ask another way. Here's what I mean, what I meant really to ask. Okay. So let's say you come in with 2 contracts, you add another 3 contracts. Okay. Now,
Hmm.
do you have the same stop loss amount for the first entry and the second entry, or you keep them separate?
Um, not I don't have separate stop. I if I go from, let's say, 2 to, and then add 3 and I'm up to 5, then I make my stop loss 5 contracts, and I'll just get out of the whole thing if it's hit.
Got you. Got you. Okay.
I don't like try to scale out with on the stop loss. Um, if it's going to turn and hit my stop loss, then I've learned that it's best just probably to get out at that point, because you can always get back in.
Right. Okay.
That's just the way I've been doing it. I really haven't tried scaling. I've done that in the past on other things with shorter time frames, but I'm just setting one stop. If I'm up to 10 contracts, my stop loss is going to be the 10.
Okay. All right, let me see if there's any. Well, let's go ahead and let me, with your permission, I'd like to show the 240 minutes chart that you sent.
Sure. And please tell me if I messed up on it.
I looked at it. It was
I'm not
perfect.
sure. I'm trying to go by what you've taught us and trying to figure out where the middle is and so forth. And so I might be a little bit off. I'm not a chartist. I'm not a, what do they call those people that are take all those tests and are certified? I'm not that good, but I've just tried to learn from you.
Well, I think you're doing a great job. All right, here's your 240-minute chart, and that's coffee. That's 60 minutes. I'm sorry. That's 60 minutes.
Yes.
Um, you drew your trend lines really good, Dennis. Darn good.
Yeah. I didn't get everything. It's not quite back to May 31, but the gold line is kind of the overall trend. If I went from the point where I got into the high point, and that's where I got out, was just a little ways, basically at my stop, which would have, if you see that high red, and I got that signal that it was oversold or overbought, I mean, I believe if you go to that next RQ channel, that's where my stop was, and that's where I got knocked out at about 151, close to there, 151, 10, something like that.
Okay.
Probably 20, I think.
Okay, let's see if you've sent me any other charts. I think that was the only one.
I think I, let's see, if that one, I thought it maybe
You have a
showed my
short-term trade.
stops.
Here's a, I think a 30-minute chart, but you,
I just sent that as an example. The equity indices, this is the Russell. I use the 30-minute chart, and these are the instruments that I use. I use the candle. The stop is way down below on this. I mean, I just was using this as an example, but generally my stop would be up much higher. I would be trailing, and I would, that 5 candle, that third one, I would have probably had my stop underneath that candle, or the even maybe the one before it. Um, I use the RC Cal just because when you click on it, you can see what your profits would be at the next Gnostic lines, and I like the NOS 3 volume indicator, and you can see what your risk potential is. The only instrument that I use that is not RQ is the Woody's CCI,
yeah, you mentioned it
and
before.
I've adjusted this, and there's actually quite a bit in all these different lines and colors and the meanings. I actually had to buy a book to learn how to use this, but I was finding that even when Ken lowered the RQ tech down to 5 minutes, it still was not giving me the signal I wanted. So I actually will use this if you can see, you go back to 10 in the morning and you see how it
The
those
spike.
candles straight up,
Mm-hmm.
and you look at the chart and you can see that the candles were, it actually gave you a signal just before that. If you see the little green dot on the bottom of the arrow on Woody's, so it's I like it because it's very quick. It's showing um, um, reversals and so forth. So it's something I kind of look at. It's I mean, I don't use it to actually trade. Not that doesn't make a decision if I enter or get out of a trade. I still go to the RQ Tech in the 240 minute and even weekly if I'm going to get out or re-enter or whatever. Those are the absolutes that I go by. That's kind of my Bible, and the Woody's CCI would kind of be like the Wall Street Journal or something like that.
Cool, 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 cool. Good stuff. Um, Members, you have any questions for Dennis? Let's open it up for some Q&A.
And I just want to let you know, Mr. Rios, that I'm I I've used the Einstein with the shorter settings, and I lost about 10,000 the first week I tried it,
Wow.
so it kind of scared me off. And but I want to um, Nicholas, he sent me his settings that he was working with on the 60-minute time frames. I want to go back and look at those and then get the smart box and start working with some of my own ideas, correlations and so forth, and see what I can do with that, because I still really believe in this Einstein. Yeah, in the long run, I think if we can get it set up that matches our style and our personality, um, it's kind of hard to beat a robot. I mean, it works while we're sleeping. I can't watch the market at night,
Well, I
but
tell you what, Dennis, what to do what you're doing, swing trading, the way that you could use Einstein is to get you in the trade. Uh, you're going to need to have different settings for runners. We may have to do some adjustments to Einstein to allow you to pyramid because it doesn't have that
mhm,
capability, but that's something we can definitely look at and look into to help you out with that. But I think it's still going to need for you to. Oh, it also would also have to add a another code to pyramid to using those channels and the amounts, and then have some kind of money management in there uh,
mhm,
for the exits. But it still might, and I would highly recommend, especially at the beginning of something like this, is for you to have the same instrument on a chart trader, an additional chart using chart trader, and adjust your profit targets like you're doing now. I've been doing
mhm,
that with mine, with my even with my day trade. I always have, like if I'm trading the S&P as an example, we can go back to this trade if it's still open. Um, See, it got out on a break even, so that I couldn't even use that as an example. The notes is still open. So here I have the notes. Um, and you can see, let's see if I can move this over. So it's going to be important for you to be able to, make adjustments on the chart, uh, so you don't give up total control of your trading, especially if you've been very successful with the strategy that you employing, that you're using. You don't want to do something completely different. But there might be a way that you can use Einstein to help you get into some of these trades. And like you said, uh, look at them with the chart trader, make sure you like it, where the stops are, where if you want a pyramid or not, maybe we can build some kind of button to enable or disable pyramiding while you're in the trade. And then you go to sleep. you know, that's really what you're looking for Einstein to
Might
do for
have
you,
to
is to
pyramid
take and
with
rest.
like the four different targets in there. I might if I guess if I kind of set this up like what I'm doing here is what I was hoping was I could, set targets. I don't know that they would be the exact, but I was hoping to at least one at a time. If I hit my pyramiding target, Einstein would pick that up, and and I don't know if it's capable of continuing to do um, the uh, the running stop and
Well, we
still leave you enough room so that you don't get knocked out. Um, because I keep mine fairly far away. I even lengthened them this morning after getting knocked out last night, and I'm glad I did because the market was crazy for a while this morning.
Yeah, well, you can, like I said, you can have a chart trader next to it and adjust your stops. That you can do, but we would have to add some extra lines of code to be able
Hmm.
to accommodate more of your strategy. So, that's one way that Einstein, can help you.
Hmm.
Einstein, and this is the cool thing about and why I like, being in a group setting, like we have here, and we're doing this um, meetup. We've got Scott who has been highly successful trading a different style that Dennis that you're trading, and he's been very, very successful, and we've
Hmm.
actually added code to accommodate his trading. Now here's Dennis using the same NOS levels, using the same RQ channel, which is what drives a good part of Einstein, but you're using it for swing trade. You're using it different. And the big difference is not just the time frame. The difference is that Scott's getting in with 3 or 4 positions that are going to have you know, he's going to be scaling out. You're doing the
Hmm.
complete opposite. You're coming in with 1 or 2 positions and you're pyramiding. So
Yes.
yeah, those are complete opposites. And I'm not saying that one is better than the other. What I'm saying is that it depends on your personality. Just like you said earlier, your personality, the way that you are trading now fits your personality, and I'm sure um, Scott's version fits his personality best. Um, and also, what I'd like to add to that is that other members, that we have use different variations. The key is to find what fits your personality and make the changes uh, to fit your personality and to fit your mindset,
Mhm.
because trading is really hard, and you're up against a lot of different variables. So you don't need to be up against yourself, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Inside you can't struggle. You can't have a struggle inside. And that struggle would be, as an example, is you're left-handed, and you're a 6-year-old, 7-year-old left-handed kid who starts school, and the teacher said, keeps trying to make you write, with your right hand. You're going to have
Mhm.
internal conflicts, right? So that's, trading is the same thing. You don't want to force yourself to a strategy or a set of indicators that is just not, that's going to be in conflict with your personality. You got to
Yeah.
find something. And the cool thing about, what the way these tools are built is that you can make a lot of changes, and you can use different approaches to fit your personality, and hopefully,
Mhm.
make you more comfortable
Yeah.
as a trader.
Well, I know when I initially started with Rios back in 2011, um, I was initially introduced to the program by Steve Schwartz, and he worked with me for about a month, and then he finally come to a day when he said, "Dennis, it's time for you to make a decision. Are you going to buy this or not?" And I really didn't want to buy it. I wasn't completely sold, but I felt so bad for Steve because he'd spent so much time with me.
Dennis,
Um,
how long ago was that? I don't know if you said. I didn't hear
that
you.
in like February, March of 2011.
Oh, so you're going back
Steve,
5, 6 years.
yeah, Steve worked with me, and then he passed me over to EP, and EP worked with me one-on-one and set up a trading plan for me. And that never really worked for me because there were so many rules that, and criteria that had to be met before you got into a trade or exited or whatever. I just always had a problem with it. It just didn't seem to match what I was seeing on the charts. Um, I mean, every stop had to be like 2 ticks below a particular Gnostic line, um, and you couldn't enter a trade until you got a 5 candle and you were out of a no trading zone. And um, sometimes to me, it was like you were leaving a lot of money on the table, waiting. I mean, sometimes, I mean, half of your trade was already, gone. And then the RQ channels come along, and so I got those, and that really helped. But I had a problem with the rules, and EP was really big into scalping with the Bollinger Bands, and for me, scalping doesn't fit my personality. It's just not me, and so I struggled, and I eventually kind of went a little bit my own way. I didn't say anything to EP because I knew he'd go ballistic on me. So um, I don't want to, you know, um, I like EP, and he's a great trader, and he's a super great teacher and communicator. Um, I like him personally, but I just had a problem with, it wasn't for me. And so I'd actually was doing well. I actually took a, a method that I learned from a Forex trader, a well-known Forex trader. Um, Her name was Kathy Lin. She's a Chinese lady. I took a Bollinger method that she had that was more longer term. It was like double Bollinger bands. And I found that that really worked well. And I made a lot of money. And then I woke up that one morning, turned on the computer to find out that I didn't have any data, and I went into the RQ room, and you were talking about our options for another broker because PFG overnight was shut down, and that's where I had all my money.
Ouch.
So
Yeah.
my wife said, "That's it, no more." And so I sat on the sidelines for a couple of years. Um, when EP left you and started his own thing, he called me up and asked me if I would like to be part of his group. So I kind of decided, well, maybe it's time to give trading a second chance, but that just didn't work out. The platform was eCry. I really struggled with it. 2,400 pages to learn how to use that program. That reminded me of going back to about 1990 when I used to use a lot of computer code to run whatever you were doing. To me, that's really an outdated program. It's powerful, but it's a long learning curve to learn how to use it. So to me, Ninja Trader was much easier. It's actually very easy, and they've got a ton of videos teach you how to use it. Now, eCry used to have a lot of videos, but I believe it was Gain Capital. They bought out
Yes.
the eCry platform, and they've removed all the YouTube videos and everything, and they're guarding them like they're some kind of national secret. So that didn't really go over well with me. So that's when um, EP just told me one day, he says, I'll work with you, just go back to Ninja Trader. So I did, but after talking with Ken, I really like Ken. I just decided to go back and be with you guys. So I've been with you every day almost for since last September, October, somewhere in there.
Yeah. And so you finally found your comfort zone with your strategy.
Yeah, I think this is for me. Um, I've the last couple of months, um, I've done very well, and I'm only having to worry about, um, 5 trades at a time. And where they're in a 60-minute, it's easier to follow for me. And it's nice to, see that you're up several $1,000s a day. Um, that's a pretty good living.
Yeah, I'd say so. I'd say so. All right, Dennis. Well, I think we've run out of time. I want to thank you for taking the time for sharing your experience and what you're doing and what's working and what didn't work for you. And it's funny you mentioned EP. It was his birthday yesterday, so
No,
I've been exchanging emails and texts with him. He was here in Miami. We were supposed to go out to dinner not that long ago, but my father fell ill and was in the hospital, so I had to cancel on him. So he's trying to arrange another flight out down here. Um, he's a good
well,
guy.
I'll tell you this, Mr. Rios. I've been day trading since 1996,
Wow.
and I was fortunate enough to get in on the internet boom. And if I told you how much money I made and then I lost when it went down, you'd all start crying. So, but I've been with, I added this up, and I've been with 7 different trading firms since I started in '96, and Rios Quantitative is by far the best.
I
And
appreciate that.
um, I would just tell people this, I would never get into any trading firm that, one, doesn't have a live trading room where you can actually see what they're trading. I mean, a lot of these people have expensive software they want to sell to you, but they're not trading themselves. So they're just making their money by mass membership. And so I, I'm just, I've been with some really big trading firms and outfits, and um, I've been more profitable with RQ. What I'm seeing, um, Mr. Rios is so open. When you look at what the time he has spent with upgrading the Einstein, it's unbelievable to me. And he's just, it, you have to trade this way, period. No, he's open to new ideas and has a great system. I consider Mr. Rios a genius, and I don't say that lightly, because if you talk to anybody like Ken, I told him that when I rejoined. So, um, having you teach us every day for the last 6 months or so, um, it, to me, has been the best learning experience of my life.
That's when you joined the
So,
IQ room 6 months ago?
yeah, I got in, and I think maybe a month or so after I kind of come back, I went through the master's trading course that you put on, and I,
How'd you
I
like that
learned
course?
so much in that class, and just every day being in both the morning class that's open to all members, and then the IQ trading room 3 times a week. And then we get the recordings and listen to those over and over. And there's just, you could write a book. Um, it would be, like 10 volumes of the Bible. So I don't know, maybe I need to write a book about Rios Quantitative.
I love you, Dennis. Thank you very much. Those were very kind words. Very kind words.
So, and Ken has been great. Um, you know, what a fantastic person he is. He's so responsive. Anything I've ever asked for, I've had it within a day or two, with the exception of the RQ changes, and those I know he had to have spent some time to make like 4 or 5 different versions of this for me before I finally found. And this particular one, I took off the 15 and 30-minute time frames, trying to take as much as I could out of the RQ tech because it's so data intensive.
Right.
And I figured I don't need a lot of that other stuff. I can just look at the chart and see if I'm in the box or the trade zone and so forth. And I don't need to know how many contracts I'm in. I can look at my chart and see that. So I took a lot of that and removed it, so that I was down to the bare minimum of what I felt I needed.
Well, that's good. I'm going over the weekend. I'm gonna build a architect like yours, and I'm gonna go ahead and start looking at it on a daily basis. All right, members, we've run out of time, so I'm gonna go ahead and close up. Wishing everybody a safe weekend. This has been recorded, so I'll try to get the link out later on this evening. Dennis, again, thank you very, very much for sharing. Members,
Well,
thanks for
appreciate
jumping
you
in.
asking me.
Hmm? Any other questions for Dennis before we close up? Yeah, uh, Dennis, you're getting a lot of the members thanking you as well. You just can't read it because it only comes over here on one on the.
Well, I appreciate the members. I learned so much from them. All the stuff that so many of them have put into the uh, Skype room, and I'm planning to put a lot of the stuff that I sent to you and some other things. I'll put them in the Skype room for them to see, and I'll try to write an explanation of what I'm doing with those two.
That'd be great. I'll take that and post it on our blog, thetradingroom.com. So that'll be great.
That's great.
All right, members. Dennis, thanks again. Members, thanks for spending the week with us. And we'll see you Monday morning. Bye now.